Joining me now from New Orleans, Louisiana, lobbyist for the cruise ship industry, senior partner at Gulf South Strategies, and Trump campaign surrogate, Brian Trascher. Brian, last I heard, you got to give me an update here, but last I heard there was a no-sail directive from the White House for cruise ships wanting to use U.S. ports. July 24th, it ends. Does that stand right now?
So far, my understanding is that nothing's really changed. A lot of the major cruise lines are looking at going back into service sometime this fall, with, of course, some modifications from what people are probably used to.
Research, the cursory research I've looked at on this issue is that it seems like every cruise line is approaching this differently, which doesn't surprise me because I've walked into a dozen restaurants around where I live, and every restaurant is approaching this differently. Is the cruise ship industry in general waiting for some sort of directive from the CDC? We know that most of these ships, of course, are flagged in another country, right? They're not even flagged in the United States, but in order to use U.S. ports, one would imagine they probably have to comply to the United States. Is that what we're looking at here?
Yeah, well, they will, and you bring up a good point about the ports really being the driving force behind the future of the immediate future of the cruise ship industry. And I work with a lot of Caribbean governments who most of their economy relies on those tourism dollars that come in from cruise ships, and they're really being crushed right now. So they want to get back to business just as much as the cruise industry does. But yeah, they do have to comply with the health officials of any particular port that they plan on docking in and picking up and letting off passengers with. That's just part of the game.
Yeah, think about all the damage that this industry has sustained here. It's not just the cruise lines themselves, but it's all these associated ports and businesses that support the cruise. I mean, think about just the catering and the food supply and you know, business partners like that. Is there any way to quantify? Is the industry quantifying at all the amount of damage like the airline industry is, which is clearly in the hundreds of billions of dollars? What about for the cruise lines?
You know, I'm sure they are. That's not something that any conversations I've been a part of. So I'm not on the financial end of things. But what I can tell you, you know, again, you brought up a good point with the downline effects of different people that are affected by the cruise ship economy. But think all the way down, Graham, to the single mom in St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands, who sells T-shirts right across the street from where the cruise ships come in. How's she going to feed her family? You know what I mean? It's all over the place. But again, like you said, a lot of these lines are approaching it differently, but I expect to see a lot of them. You know, a lot of these lines have veteran regular cruisers who are kind of their bread and butter. Those people aren't going to be afraid to cruise. It's going to be trying to convince the public at large that it's safe to cruise again.
Each cruise line seems to be setting its own return to business timeline. The first one is as close as August 1st. That would be Celebrity. There's a bunch scheduled, including Royal Caribbean, Princess Cruises, a bunch, 6 of them, scheduled for sometime in September. We have Norwegian and Disney saying, okay, early October, and Cunard is looking at November. Are you hearing that they're going to be pretty much sticking to these dates, or are these going to be slid back? Is there any kind of guidance at all if this is an accurate schedule?
I think they left a lot of room for a game time decision. And of course, a lot of these decisions were made before we saw some of these recent outbreaks. They're a combination of more testing being available, as well as hundreds of thousands of people taken to the streets protesting in the United States without masks or social distancing. And it's about 14 days later, here we are from when that happened, even though the government doesn't want to admit that that's what it is. But anyway, going back to the cruise ship industry, yeah, I mean, they're going to have to do what's best for them, as well as comply with any local laws or ordinances that govern them. Of course, you mentioned some of the lines that and when they're planning on going back. You have river cruise industries, which are really big over in Europe, that have already gone back.
Right.
There's some popular ports like Seychelles and the Maldives that are still closed to cruise traffic all the way through the end of 2021 into 2022. So again, it's going to be a combination of the cruise liners and the ports they service to get together and have a definitive game plan on when they can get back to business as usual.
And what their so-called health requirements are. Because again, I just don't see a lot of people saying, yeah, fine, I'm going to wear a mask for 10 or 14 or 21 days and actually kind of enjoy a cruise like that. So there's going to be some sort of happy medium here, I'm sure. Brian, thanks.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One American News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One American News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.